Talk Funding Backstory with John from Mammoth Interactive. If you want to hear how somebody has built a company from scratch, then this is the interview for you. John has really built this company up, so it has over $1 million worth in revenue from Kickstarter alone. It has 1 million in unit sales, over 1 million in unit sales, and this was all built by John by his own blood, sweat and tears. And he's really used crowdfunding as a means to help build up this company to where it is today. So really special interview today. It's half an hour long, but please sit back, make yourself a wee cup of tea, have a wee brandy, whatever your tipple is, and sit back and listen to this great interview. So let's go. Let's get on with the show. Hello, Talk Funders. Today again, we're joined by John from Mammoth Interactive. John, I really enjoyed the main interview and particularly the deep dive where you're talking really sold me in going for your complete machine learning 3.0 course, which is in the video description below. You know, to give people like myself, total beginners to machine learning, the confidence to go in and have a go at a very, very affordable price of, I think it's 49 Canadian, to do that journey of, you know, and also increase their job prospects, but also their employment prospects in current employment, so they can understand machine learning. But really, John, in this backstory, I just love backstory because I want to learn about your entrepreneurial journey. I mean, I think in the main interview you were alluding that you went to a summer school, you were at a university, you were 12-year-old, you know, whatever, coding wasn't cool. I just love to hear that, how you went through that journey, how you founded Mammoth Interactive, and how you've got to where you are today. So sure. Really over to you, John, my friend.
Sure. So, you know, I've been coding since 1997, and I took a computer programming course when programming was not cool. It was definitely not cool to be a computer programmer or sit in front of the computer. But you know, some people feel really comfortable in front of a computer. I can do that all day, right? I do it all day, right? I sit in front of a computer. So I started learning C and C++, and then, you know, and I really wanted to make a game, but like back in the 90s, everything was way harder than it is today. Like kids are so spoiled today. You can make an amazing game and just like upload it to the App Store with all the other apps. It's amazing. But like, you know, making a Nintendo 64 game or, you know, a PlayStation game back then was like next to impossible. You needed lots of money, but, you know, I still kind of worked on it. And, you know, through high school, I would program things here and there. But, you know, as soon as I graduated in 2008, and it was very difficult to find a job.
Timely year. And it was graduating.
That's yeah. Oh man, I can't tell you. It was like, I think I applied to 400 jobs over 4 years, and it was just like nothing. Boom. Right. So, you know, I'm like, what do I need to do? And, you know, at the time I had this really awesome, software that would compose video game music for you as the level progressed, and it would like compose it on the spot. And I tried to shop that to so many different places and just didn't work out. So I said, you know, why don't I just make a video game just completely from scratch? And keep in mind, like, this is 2008, 2009, still way more difficult than it is today. Like, so I'm like, you know what? I have an Xbox. I might as well make an Xbox game. And I did, but there was a huge problem. The programming language for the Xbox 360 was in C#, and they had this framework called XNA, and I didn't know that, right? So I know C++, so I had like some knowledge in JavaScript and H and all that stuff. So what I did is I actually subscribed to a very early version of online learning where they did this. You actually made a bunch of games, and you know, it's a very prototype of kind of what I'm doing now, and it worked. I made like 3 or 4 prototype games, and then I made a current game, and then yeah, I released the Xbox 360 game. And then my career took off after that. I was getting a bunch of freelance work, and a whole bunch of other opportunities just popped up. But then, you know, I said, well, why don't I make a bunch of App Store games? And so I did. I made a bunch of small App Store games, and, you know, they kind of worked. But whenever I would show off my phone, it's like, hey guys, I made this today, right? Everyone's like, how do you make that? How do you make iPhone apps? Nobody cared about my games or my apps. It was just about how do you do that? I'm like, huh. Okay, so I remember seeing on Groupon this small site at the time called Udemy, and I'm like, Do I really want to make a course? I think I do. So, so I made this massive 35-hour course on how to make games from scratch. And this was so revolutionary that it was making the code, the art, the music, and everything about the game. And then a bunch, I think it was like 10 or 15 games or something like that, like the whole process from start to finish. And no one had ever done that before. And I did it, and it was a huge success. And then since Udemy was a new company, they said, well, can you make iPhone and web development apps? I'm like, I absolutely can, right? Because over that time, I've been doing tons and tons of projects of getting things out the door. And this is the thing that you have to understand as an entrepreneur is like, if you want to release things, you have to get in the habit of releasing things. And, I think, I made, several iPhone games and Xbox 360 games, and plus of other different projects as well. I was in the habit of releasing things. And then, and at this point in time, I still was like living paycheck to paycheck. I had like next to no money in my bank account. And then Udemy's like, well, why don't you do this? We need that done in like a month. I'm like, I will do that for you. And so it was like, I was ready for my big break, and then I got it. And then when you get it, you have to pounce, and you have to just you have to just sprint and keep running until it runs out. And that was 10 years ago. And I remember it was like a $15,000 check. And I'm like, that was like it was so much money for me, right? At the time, it was just amazing. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just do this as much as I possibly can. This was, early 2012. And, and so I kept on doing it. And I basically was really fast at getting these tutorials out there. So I would work so hard up until about 2016, just making courses all by myself and making every single like game development courses, iOS courses, Android courses, whatever people wanted, they just did. And so it worked out really well. I made a ton of connections because, e-learning back then was still really new. Everyone kind of, they thought it was new. It's not like what it is today, which I'll get to in a second, right? But like, they knew what it was, and there was a lot of VC funding into it, but it wasn't like the big moneymaker that it is today. And so in 2016, the market conditions forced me to upscale my business. And for about 8 months, I tried to figure out a good way to do that. And then, I hired a bunch of employees. I got, I figured out a way to make a team, right? Like a team of people so we can collaborate and make better projects. Again, we have meetings every day. Well, not too many meetings. Like I would meet with everyone every day, which is kind of a philosophy of mine. I don't have too many meetings, but just like kind of the first 30 minutes of your day is like a little kind of check-in, and then it's off to the races, right? So we still continue to produce the projects here, but and for year over year, we made more money, like from 2012 all the way to 2018. And then I made the #1 mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make, and they think that they're the best thing in the world, right? And then we weren't, I didn't do things like I used to do. I didn't look at what the market was saying. And, I basically took 6 months too long to pivot and change. And as a result, from about September 2018 to summer of 2019, sales were down about 30%. I mean, not zero, right? But if you've ever run a business and sales are down 30%, it feels like the end of the world, right? So I did that, and I learned the hard way, the very hard way, that you always have to be on top of your game. Success is a wheel, it's not a destination. And I learned that, and the crazy thing is I knew that at the time, and I got complacent, and at this point in time, I've had 2 kids, and then one of the days it just got better, right? I figured out and I retooled everything, and then it just got better, right? And then 2020, things were looking really good into 2020. And then the pandemic hit, right? And I thought that I would go into business. I had a meeting with all my employees, like, look, like the stock market was going down. I'm like, guys, I don't know how we're going to survive this, but everyone working from home made it our best year ever, right? And when you look at that now, it sounds like it's obvious, but it was not obvious when the stock market had tanked and everything was red. Bitcoin was only at $3,000, right? It wasn't obvious then. I really thought, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to have to fold this at the end. But, it obviously didn't work that way. And it was literally our best year ever. And then, it's been a little bit slow over the summer. And I think that's mostly because everyone, including myself, doesn't want to be in front of a computer screen. I love being in front of a computer screen. And I'm like, no, let me go out for a hike or something. And so I think, you know, that's happened over the last summer. And it was been a little bit slow, but, you know, up now, like with this Kickstarter, things are starting to pick up again. And with the pandemic being the way it is, work from home is going to be continually, like the longer this goes on, the more work from home is going to be, is going to be a thing. And you can just learn everything online. You don't have to go to university. You can just, you know, buy this course, and there's a bunch of other things that you can do to get yourself a really good job. And, you know, that's kind of why we do that. So that's kind of my long story. And it shows you, you know, how you go from, well, not being employed and to being, well, $1 million in sale, you know, a million courses in sales and multi-millions of dollars in sales altogether. And it takes a lot of hard work. Again, success is a wheel. You have to constantly be looking at things, and it's a difficult life, but if you do it right, it's really good.
Wow, golden. That's golden. That's all I can say. John, I mean, I thank you so much for sharing your journey. I was just spellbound there. I don't even know how long that was. I just love it. I mean, I just want to at this point, just, you know, talk about that advanced neural network edition. I mean, if anybody is watching this, they should really click through in the Kickstarter link below and go and look at that pledge, which I think is coming in at 109 Canadian. Like, you know, just listening to John's journey, if this is something that you want to get into, coding, and it's very practical based, it's all about building projects, and start to go on this journey with John and actually his crowd. I mean, maybe we could talk about that. I mean, can we talk about, you know, the community that you've built around Mammoth Interactive and sort of like that feedback loop? Because as you were saying, I think in the main interview, this is your third iteration of the $49 machine learning 3.0. But through those second and in this third iteration, you have been talking to your customers, and they've been sort of encouraging you. They're waiting for this and there interacting with you. So maybe can we just talk about how you engage with your community?
Sure. So we have a bunch of different kinds of courses. Like, you know, the machine learning one is the big one because, like, really it's the technology of this decade. There's three major technologies that are going to be in this decade: is machine learning, robotics, and cryptocurrencies, blockchain. But mostly blockchain, but cryptocurrencies are around that. So like if you see Bitcoin going up, it's because the technology, the underlying technology, is becoming more and more practical, more and more stable, and more useful every day. So, you know, we have a blockchain course. We released a blockchain course. You know, there'll probably be a robotics course at some point, but we have to figure out a good way to do that. But yeah, machine learning is there as well. And so lots of people want to, you know, we have a big email list, and, you know, we have lots of people that we talk to, and they just want a specific course because they know they're going to get a really good value. And that's the other thing I guess I haven't really talked about is, like, you know, especially if you're in the United States, like, it's very expensive to go to school. And like sometimes we get comments saying that our stuff is better than their computer science courses, right? We really do. And, you know, and the other thing about, again, like success is a wheel. So if you're a programmer, you constantly have to be updating your skills. So we have people with, like, you know, master's engineering and like computer engineers that come to our courses, be like, okay, I need to update my skills. So here it is. And, you know, for the amount that we're actually charging, it's really a no-brainer in my opinion. Like, I think I spent more money like 12 years ago on that online course, which was a subscription. Oh, and this is lifetime access, by the way. So once you buy this, you get lifetime access to the course. There's no subscriptions here, which I don't think I've even mentioned yet. But like most other places are on a subscription, it's really expensive. And then, I mean, the content is usually pretty good on these sites, but, you know, we have a really good value proposition for you. And if you make like even one or two of these practical projects and add it to your LinkedIn or resume, guaranteed you'll make that money back in some way, shape, or form. Guaranteed.
I mean, I think so much to talk about here, John. I mean, I think that is culturally now, there's an awareness coming in as like, it's the same in the UK and in Ireland, where it's quite heavy fees to go to, you know, to third level education, to go and get that degree certificate. Whereas the job market are going like we need people now, and we need people who can show us that they can do the job, not just the theory. So I mean, I'm just going back, just laughing at your machine learning course. The 3.0 is 49 Canadian, and the advanced neural networks, which gives you I think 5 or 6 courses like Amazon Web Services, etc., etc. It's 109 Canadian, or like or is it 86 American. I mean, like, why don't you just do that and buy into this? Stay at home, live with mom and dad if you're thinking of going to college, and for a lot less money, a lot less stress, just do the course. So that was one thing. The other thing I'd like to ask you about is I just you're talking about this revolution that's happening into the main employment is going to be machine learning. Blockchain and robotics, and you've alluded there already that you could be bringing out a robotics course, which will be fascinating, and you've also got one blockchain. But like, knowing that you've got 28 Kickstarters, right, you're going to be rolling for another 10 decades, but we'll get to that in a moment. What is the best way to get in contact with you at Mammoth Interactive? And then I can put these links in the video description below. Like you mentioned, there was an email list. Is that the best way to keep in contact with your developments, or how's the best way to keep in contact, John?
The best way, if you follow Mammoth Company at Twitter, that's our Twitter handle. We post like a lot of stuff on there, blog articles. You can go to mammothinteractive.com. We have a sign up there as well. And there's a blog. So if you want to read some stuff about all the stuff that we're doing, we have a YouTube channel, Mammoth Interactive. And if you really like all of my advice here, I do almost daily video on my YouTube channel called Buratech, where I talk about technology, trends, how to make money, all those kind of things, right? And after making so much money, it's definitely worth it, because I really try to some entrepreneurs just want to provide a good service and help people out, and that's exactly what I want to do. So I have a YouTube channel, I have an e-learning company, and that's basically what I do.
Well, hold on here. This is getting really interesting. You've got a YouTube channel with you're posting nearly daily. And what's it called again? And I'll put this link in the video description below as well.
Sure, it's called Buratech. So Buratech. And then, I talk about everything like we're kind of talking about here, like machine learning, biology. I talk about work from home, anything that in the technology space that, is worthwhile. And I think I can add in some value there. So the whole point is that there's something happens. Like, for example, there's a big Epic and Apple lawsuit. So I talked about that, what the ramifications are of that. So if you want to keep up to date, that's probably the best way to do it, is to follow me on Buratech.
And that's probably a way to keep you sharp as well, because you were saying earlier on in this backstory interview, which is illuminating, is that you were saying you'd lost focus for that 6 months, and your sales were down 30%. So actually, probably by you even going through this daily, pushing out this daily video, that keeps you fresh, keeps you connected to that sort of broader perspective. So which, going to my 2008 perspective, my wee journey was I was really focused on one thing, and to my peril, and that's my backstory. So I think that's fantastic that you're very focused, as you say. Your staff comes in, you have a short chat with everybody, with your team, seeing how everybody is, and then just let them go on. So that's really focused on the daily grind of getting out your next course, which I hope is robotics course, which I hope you'll come back and talk to me about. But also, I love a way you've got the broader perspective, because then that really will feed in that sort of meta perspective. Then that will connect into your daily video, but also feed into the trends that you want to see in your up and coming courses. John, would that be correct?
Absolutely. I never really thought of it that way, but that's absolutely right. So like in technology, things change, right? Like pretty much, well, every week something happens, right? So you have to keep up on the trends. And, just after watching a whole bunch of videos, like I probably spend about 1 to 2 hours these days, just like researching stuff, right? For the Buratech videos, and just researching stuff, listening to interviews and from smart people, et cetera. And then I put that into Buratech, so that, you know, you can like filter it out so you can get something really useful out of it right away. You know, usually from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's like, you know, how do I do this? You know, what's the money making trend? That kind of thing. And, you know, just to think of it, you know, when I was in that period, I had two really young kids, and I was incredibly sleep deprived. So that's another thing you have to understand. If you do want to have kids, you have to prepare to be sleep deprived. And I would say that probably had an effect, but mostly it was because of me not reacting as quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of learning in that, you know, you're a very busy guy by the sounds of it. You know, you've got your company, you've got your family, and you're also now, you know, wanting to help other people with that, with your daily video, which I want to subscribe. So please, at the end of the interview, send me through that your YouTube link, and I'll put that in the video description below. I really love it. And the other thing I just want to talk about is, first of all, your team. You've assembled a great team. Then, I mean, are they all? Is that how what's been the process of you growing that team? You know, going from a solo entrepreneur, as you said, for many years, and then growing the team. Did you find that challenging, or was that a fairly easy process for you?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. So if you've ever tried to hire anyone, it's really challenging. But there's lots of things. Okay, so I had to do a bunch of interviews, and, you know, for me, so what happened actually is we used to make a lot of our money on udemy.com. And as soon as I scaled up my business, I hired 3 employees, right? So I used to do everything, by the way. So I used to do the video editing, the marketing, content creation, everything. And I actually went to Japan to tour a Mazda plant, and they had this like assembly line. And I was just blown away at how efficient it was. Like, you're getting a car out of like this process. And so I decided to do the same thing for online courses, right? And I'm constantly trying to, you know, make the most amount of course for the least amount of money. And so I tried to figure out a good kind of assembly line. So I get one person doing video editing, one person doing the videos, and then another person doing marketing, et cetera. And then that really did work out. And then I used to do a lot of the voices and the recordings, but I've stopped that now because I'm all just kind of managing everything. But for the most part, it was really it wasn't as hard for me because I know how to train people, but like training people to do individual tasks, you know, it does take a little bit of work, and you have to hire the right person. I can't stress that enough. You have to hire the right person, and you have to hire people that, you know, can learn, easy to work with, and, you know, that are really, and well, then that can frankly do the job. And, you know, I hired a lot of people right out of university. And, you know, they're with me today. It's been 5 years since then. But what was crazy at the time is I scaled up my business. My wife was pregnant with my first kid. And then Udemy did this weird price change thing, and my sales tanked 80%.
Oh my God.
80%. And I didn't, yeah. So that was not fun, but we made it work, and we didn't lose any money that year. Right? We made it work, and it was difficult. I mean, it was unnecessary, that price change thing. But, you know, they eventually, they had a system, and then they tried a new system, and it really didn't work. And then they went back to the old system is really what it came down to. But yes, for a few months, it was like 80% down.
And then by the end, go ahead. At that point, then, is that whenever you decided to grow off and become Mammoth Interactive and really develop your own website, your own web presence? And not be dependent on Udemy and their fee structure, shall we say, which is anything else?
Yeah. So what happened is like, if you're going to these marketplaces, you're always at the whim of whatever they decide, right? Like, if you want to make a video game and you're on Steam, right? Like, Steam can just say, hey, we're taking 50% today, right? And what are you going to do, right? You know, so it's just what it is. But the thing is over the years, these companies have given us a huge amount of marketing, right? And so if I were to spend the money to get everything myself, I'd have to spend way more money, and it wouldn't be profitable. So, you know, uploading Udemy is not necessarily a bad idea to get some more presence and whatnot. You know, I started with Udemy in 2011. So it's like, well, I'm just going to upload courses there. But yes, I basically diversified my business quite a bit after that. And everyone on Udemy did as well, right? There was like, well, I mean, they could say, you're off the platform tomorrow, and not even give you a reason, because there's no competitor in that space. And if anyone's listening, there needs to be a competitor. So that's a huge startup idea, which, I frankly don't have the time for. But
just before we look at another platform which you're creating, like, I don't know whether you want to call this your side hustle or side project, which is Crowdstock. I just have to ask you, what the hell are you going to do? Pardon my language. Going to Japan to look at a master production line for? Like, how does that feel? Like, I just have to throw that in there. Where did that come from?
Oh, so well, my father and I would always go on a trip every year, just a week, and we just kind of go see places. This is obviously before kids, right? And one year it was Peru. That year was just Japan, because I love Japan. If you've never been, it's a very, very nice place to go. And I could go back there every 2 years and be completely content. It is an amazing thing. But, I really wanted to see one of these, because Japan does production very well. It's like Germany and Japan, these are at the top of manufacturing, and China as well. But Japan has its own structure on the way it does things. And I really like that structure. I introduce a lot of Japanese concepts in whatever I do, by the way, like negative space and whatnot. So I wanted to see how they did it. And I did. And it was amazing. And I learned from that. I'm like, wow, this is how it's done. And this is what
Oh, fantastic. Well, I've got so much to talk to you about Japan, but we'll leave that for another time, because I think I could talk to you all day, John. But I just finish off this backstory interview by looking at this other project which you're involved now, which is called Crowdstock, and it's really all about crowd fulfillment. Can you really talk about that, please? It really is a fascinating project. And again, I'll put the link to that in the video description below. So over to you regarding Crowdstock, please.
Sure. So there's a couple things. So one of the things that I've done with Mammoth is it's mostly automated. And so if you've ever read like the 4-hour work week, I mean, like that is the ultimate goal. It's very rare that you would ever get that. But, I could probably, I talk to my people, and I could probably take 2 or 3 weeks off from Mammoth and just have nothing go amiss, right? Hopefully, right? But so I've been diversifying into other things that make us profitable. And one of the things that happened is that when you go into Kickstarter, they just collect the money, and you have to go to a fulfillment site. And one of the fulfillment site was bought out by another one. And so I used the site, and the other fees were just too much. So I decided to build this fulfillment site called Crowdstock. So what happens is people pledge in Kickstarter, and then they go to Crowdstock to get all the links and stuff, right? And we also have an upselling process for all those creators out there. And so after every single Kickstarter, I make even more money, right? It can be thousands and thousands of dollars extra just for getting people to go through the survey process, right? And so I said, okay, well, wait a minute. If I can do this for myself, I can surely do it for other people. And sure enough, I talked to Funded Today. And by the way, that's been an integral part of my success, which I haven't talked about. But Funded Today, there is Jordan from Funded Today said, well, why don't we start selling this to other people? And he has all the connections. And I've been basically programming this with a developer of mine. And then that's basically all we've done here. So whether you have a physical product or a digital product, you can go through Crowdstock and go through this fulfillment center. And it's really, really good. It's very easy to use, very minimalist, and it does convert. We did a couple campaigns, and these people have raised an extra few $1,000s just for going on our site, which is really awesome. But there's more. All right, there's always more. So we just released another thing that's kind of a subproduct of Crowdstock called Crowd Limits. And what Crowd Limits does is it makes the quantity it constantly checks Crowdstock to fix the quantity. So you can only have, like, if you look at our Kickstarter, it says it has 9 left. Well, this software automatically sets it at 9 left for you every 15 minutes, right? So if you have a lot of people coming in, you can have that 9 left, and it really does drive sales. This particular Kickstarter, I've turned on Crowd Limits, and it has been very good. So if you want to learn more about Crowdstock, you can just email support at crowdstock.io. We'll get in touch with you, either me or Jordan, and we can talk about Crowd Limits. And Crowd Limits is probably the most useful thing, just because it sets the limits for you, and it really does drive sales.
Well, I think you're going to have to come back maybe another time. Let's talk about Crowdstock. Maybe once you get this other campaign finished, Please come back. Please come back, John, and talk to us about crowdstock. You can put your other hat on. You can put your crowdstock hat on. But like, I really have enjoyed these 3 interviews: the TalkFunding main interview, the deep dive, which was really looking at your course that you're offering on Kickstarter, which is the complete Python and machine learning for everybody 3.0 course, and all the links for that course will be in the video description below. And I particularly love this backstory, just hearing your entrepreneurial journey, my friend, and like just the projects that you've got going. I mean, you're going to keep rolling for a long time ahead, my friend. Absolutely fantastic. So listen, I'd really like to thank John from Mammoth Interactive, who are live on Kickstarter with the complete Python and machine learning for everybody 3.0. Thank you so much, my friend. It's been a real pleasure, mate. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Bye now.